This is a response to a good friend, Avner Levi, who asks a very interesting question. He says, if animals are outside of sin, then why are they not excluded from death? Shouldn't they be like Adam and Chava were before they ate of the fruit? How is it that they feel pain and die of old age and unnatural deaths like murder, just as humans? It's actually, he says, a strange question. It's a very interesting question, and I think you're right in bringing this point up. Although it seems in the story of Bereshis, of the creation of the world, that animals never really had this status, like Adam and Chava did. But generally speaking, in Judaism, it's now accepted, especially after the sin of the tree of knowledge, that death is simply a part of life, and it's part of the natural cycle of life. And you have to understand also, animals eat each other. So that's also they don't eat humans, generally speaking. They eat other animals. So they would have to die to sustain the population of animals that already currently exists. But in general, death is nothing to be scared about, or to feel bad about. It says that sometimes a tzaddik can even come back like in the way of a fish. So a fish is a much more pleasant life, a peaceful life. But everything is in Judaism is a cycle, and it's a progression. And sometimes the life of an animal, if you think about it, because like you say, he doesn't have an evil inclination. He simply does what his intuition tells him to, and as you see it, he's constantly connected to the will of God. It says that an animal won't gore a person unless the person had it coming to him from some kind of divine judgment. So they die like everything else in nature, and this is just a continuation of their life. If they did have some kind of lively, godly spark higher than whatever an animal was, if that still needs rectification, it comes down again. But generally speaking, the life of an animal is a pleasurable one. They can experience pain, and can be hunted, and they can be maimed, and they can live painful existences. But these things, even pain and death, Judaism isn't scared about them, and Judaism isn't embarrassed, and it doesn't. Judaism is not a religion that says there's only one spectrum of life, and that is all positive. It's not. That's not the Jewish conception. Jewish conception is that death is part of life, pain is part of life, suffering is part of life. These are things we have to accept that also come from God. Like the Gemara says that just as the same name the person blesses God for good things that are revealed to him in a good way, so too he should bless some things that are negative in his perception. But use the same name, which is God's name, admitting ultimately that all these things come from God. And this is something that gets lost a lot in American society, and generally in this day and age when we're trying to envision a perfect world where there's no suffering. So this is true that this is the messianic redemption, and this there will be such a time. And like we'd say in our longer version of Tachnun on Monday and Thursday, one of the things we request is please take away from us the plague of death, because it is a plague, and initially mankind wasn't meant to feel that, but but now it's seen as just as a rectification. And it could be, there's some things in Judaism that for humans it says only the day of death atones for them. And for these things, a person has to die. It even says that even with the Messianic redemption, even when we experience the resurrection of the dead, every living being that's alive currently will have to die at least momentarily, just to taste from death, and then he'll be resurrected right away. So why do the animals have to die? Why have to suffer? These are, generally it says, Hanistaris Levayel Kenu, that the hidden things are for God only to understand. There's an interesting medrash that talks about the moon and the sun. When the moon noticed that there was another entity in the sky as big as he was, this is in the first of the creation, he complained to God that you have one kingdom, which is the sky, and you have two kings, the sun and the moon. So God said, you're right, now go diminish yourself. And the moon became much smaller than the sun, and it is today. And also it didn't become a source of light, it's just the recipient of the sun's light and a reflector of that light, as it were. But based on this measure, there's a whole conversation that goes on. The moon basically points out that in the Torah itself, which was created before the creation of the world, it talks about Adam ki yamus ba'el, that when a person shall die in the tent. So the moon says, you know what, as much as you want to blame Adam and Chava, you obviously knew they were going to fall to this temptation, and you obviously knew this was going to happen, because look, death is addressed in your Torah. If death wasn't supposed to exist, you wouldn't have put it in the Torah of what the laws of when something dies, when a person dies. And this is something that Hashem is recorded, he's quiet about. He said, you're right. And every Rosh Chodesh you'll bring a karban chet, a sin offering, and this is for my chet, that I created the world with the option, the possibility of doing evil, and that will lead obviously to death, which is a rectification for many things that happen during a person's life. And this is something that is now part of the natural order. We hope it will be taken away, but it's nothing that we should nothing that should, shake us in our faith, just because it's just part of a much greater, grander cycle of the universe that goes on that we simply don't understand because we're only getting little glimpses of what goes on. So that's my understanding of it anyway. All right, I hope this helps, and God bless you. Thank you so much.